Okay, so let's continue. In this video, we're going to begin by making our environment, starting with sculpting some rocks out for you. Also, it will be helpful to know that since we have finished our character, let's go ahead and put these subtools that we have here into a folder. Now, we've never really gone over folders and subtools, so it kind of is that continuation. So first thing I'm going to do is go to the very top subtool, and I'm just going to go ahead and under subtool, I'm just going to go down here to where it says new folder, and I'm going to call this mushroom guy. And then from here, I'm just going to kind of drag all the subtools kind of in here like so, and you can kind of see this vertical line. It kind of denotes and signifies a folder, that it's in the folder structure. So let's just go ahead and bring this through, scroll down a little bit further like so, and we're almost done. Perfect. Now we can collapse this folder down, and now we have cleaned a little bit more up on our character. So let's move on. Now that we have that taken care of, let's go ahead and append a, yep, you guessed it, 3D sphere. And let's click on that sphere and turn the visibility of this folder off. So now that we have this sphere, one of the first things I'll do is I'll just go ahead and maybe just hit the R key and kind of stretch it a little bit like that. I don't ever like this little convergence of topology, so usually I like to dynamesh something. So 9 times out of 10, I'll just go ahead and kind of just hit Control D and divide the mesh just to smooth it out, and then go under geometry and dynamesh and hit no, and just kind of give ourselves a little bit of a smooth interpretation right here. So now we can begin sort of sculpting our rock. Now there's a lot of different ways a rock can be sculpted. This is one of many ways. This is definitely a way I would start if I was ever doing stylized rocks, because it tends to look have a cartoonish feel to it. So one of the brushes that I found to be a very good one, and it's a little bit old school if there's anyone that's familiar with it, is a brush called Trim Dynamic. Now it's not one of the main brushes that we would use, which are again brush clay tubes, brush standard, move brush, Dame standard brush, and let's see, I'm forgetting one, and the inflate brush. I wouldn't bring those as the most commonly used brushes, but still, this is one I kind of like. It's kind of all the way to the very bottom here, and if you hit B, T, D, you'll get the quick key for that. So now that we have this, you may get a little bit confused on which the top side is. Just go up to your head up here, and you can kind of reorient yourself like so. So if I kind of take a shot at this, you can kind of see how it works. You know, it's kind of a, we want to kind of sculpt this into quadrants like so. You know, you can kind of see how it pushes in and creates that nice little crease there. And that's kind of what we want. We kind of want to put a crease into these areas here, and create a lot of randomness. And you can kind of, you know, make your own interpretation as much as you want, and it is yours to kind of work with. And just make sure when you're doing this to have fun, take your time. Definitely something you would want to do with a Wacom tablet, you know, just to enjoy. But you can kind of also see how we can kind of go through and find all sorts of fun shapes. If there's something you don't like in the design, like maybe that little center spot, you can kind of, you know, make it disappear through just sort of by pushing into the adjacent areas. Make sure you take one stroke to kind of smooth it out. You can kind of just see I'm having fun, just being random, you know. You can also experiment with, of course, as it goes without saying, different sizes. And get yourself, you know, something that's fairly representing to what looks, I would say, like a beginning start to a stylized looking rock. Now, when we finish going through all this, it's not going to be, you know, okay, we can put it down. I mean, you can use it in this format if you want. But one thing that we're probably going to do then is we're going to go ahead and kind of put some textures on it. You know, it's a rock. It can have imperfections on it, you know. So once you get it to a spot that you like, you know, if you are comfortable with, you can then go to a new function. We did a little bit of this function when we were doing the mushroom cap, but I guess we can actually explore a little bit deeper into this, and that's under Surface, hitting the button Noise, and that gives us sort of an interactive preview. And if we kind of bring this in, it's sort of the same rules over here. You can kind of move everything like you do normally. And the two most commonly featured dials in this little edit bar is going to be the noise scale and the strength. And that's where I would start if you are a beginner. So let's go ahead and kind of rotate this around, see if we can find ourselves a fairly apt representation here. Oh, something like that. That's good enough for me. And let's start with noise scale. And you can kind of see a sort of a consistent noise that's kind of applying across everywhere. Oops, I accidentally hit noise magnify. So if I bring it all the way up, like so, you can kind of see what it does. Now the strength is up to you, but I kind of start with a, that's like, the strength is essentially like the intensity, how deep those cracks and crevices go. And then down here, you see this diagonal half-checkered, dark, half-checkered, light-shaded area. This is sort of an area that helps you fine-tune the crevices and to look for some interesting shapes, you know. It's something that is, in my honest opinion, not easy to get on your first try, and it's also something that I would probably put as you got to just sort of practice it a little bit to really grasp it. And if you ever like get stuck or lost, or you want to delete something, you know, you can just hit the reset button and you can kind of just take it from there. One thing I just like to do is kind of draw in extra areas for these little crevices here, to kind of give myself something that I'm working with here, just to kind of see what I can make for a rock shape. It's not very much something that I would call exact science. There's a little bit of a method to it. So like this could be like one type of mesh, which could be fine. If you want, you can reset it and you could just sort of make this kind of a mesh. You just have to kind of play with it, you know. You just gotta have to work with all the fun features. Like here's another fun one. I kind of like this one a little bit more because it can kind of give us some flat surfaces, but at the same time, I also kind of want to not make it perfectly flat, but just right. We can tweak the intensity a little bit further down if you want. You can kind of see like an intro area to a rock. And this is sort of like a beginner state. And we can have like a little bit of a rock looking texture out of this. Now, if you apply it to the mesh, it's going to look a little bit different and you'll have what you want in it. But normally the representation on here and the intensity are kind of two different things. So one thing I like to do is, depending on how much is masked, I like to test the ground by something called mask by noise, and that will sort of give us like a little bit of an opportunity to do manual sculpting on it with what was masked. So if we kind of go through and hit BCT and change your stroke to something like spray or dots, and then turn off the alpha, you know, we can maybe hold left alt to push in. We can kind of, you know, move around and see what we got here. We can just kind of do something like this. If you feel that it's a little bit too soft, we can also sharpen the mask a little bit, like so. And you can kind of start off with something like that. Now, you can reapply what you've learned already, and you can then also do an additional apply to mesh to kind of get both areas. But I kind of like to go through the mesh and sort of just have a little bit of fun, just experimenting with all the different types. Like sometimes I'll just do something very standard, hit OK, and then mask by noise to see what that looks like, and then sharpen the mask out like so. Even sometimes I'll invert the mask and then repeat sort of the same process again. So like I'm kind of bringing in everything. You can kind of see. Might smooth out these cracks and then kind of, well, maybe I'll push. I like this to be the area that I push in. So let's go ahead and invert the mask. Put it like so. And then, what does this look like? A little too much noise, so maybe I'm just going very light. Too much here, so let's just start it out here. Too much, so we'll just push it in here. I'm kind of just using the inverse mask to find areas I like, don't like, etc. So you can kind of make yourself a little bit of a mask already like that. Now, if there's any areas you feel like maybe you left out, you can just kind of put another mask on there just by simply hitting. Let me look for it. Strength of the mask. No, I don't want that. I can go through and just change the noise plug of the scale, and then once again mask by noise, sharpen the mask, invert the mask, and we can just kind of put something in like so. So you can do several of these pieces, like one can be done like this, and then we could just simply duplicate that, go back to the one with the history bar here, and just simply, if you want, you can stretch this guy out, maybe. And you can have, technically, a completely different looking rock, like so. And duplicate that one off. And I'm going to, of course, turn off the pieces, the viewports, and maybe we'll like this. And you can do a whole bunch of them. So we have now like a few rocks that we made, but one last one I want to go over. This is one that I feel is a little bit of an important thing since it's a beginner class. We go through all sorts of different features and we try to use every video to talk about something. And like in this video, we talked about noise plugs. We didn't really talk about the insert mesh brushes, and that's sort of what we want to conclude to sort of get you into a final thought. You can also, insert brushes are basically pre-made models that are inserted onto the mesh. Let me give you an example. Let's go through our light box, go through our brush, and let's go ahead and look at our insert multi-mesh brush. Now, I'm going to click on the brick here, and if you look at all of this, you can see all the different types of bricks that we can use on here, including a little bit of a fun clod. And if we left click drag, we can drag in a whole nother rock. It's a little bit different because it's a pre-made model and it's different from the model that I made. But if we kind of turn in that spotlight once again, you can see bricks as another choice, and you can kind of see all the different bricks you can bring in. Like here's one brick. This one was done pretty well and has a nice looking sheen around it. Similar technique of what I did, but it's in the form of a brick. So I could probably do the same thing where I kind of trim dynamic the same thing. It's a little bit less divoted, but if you ever wanted to do an insert mesh brush to add to your environment, you can definitely do that. Notice when you draw an insert mesh brush, you have to have a couple of things done. First, you got to go ahead and understand that this is still technically being done in one piece. So to separate this from this mesh here, we have to go through Subtool, Split, and then hit Split Unmasked. And what that's going to do is that's going to put this in its own little subtool, like you see here. I'd of course hit the center point, but it's just something to keep in mind. So if you want to use that, that's fine. We're not going to be making a whole bunch of insert multi-meshes, but we wanted to give you an opportunity to understand the different brushes and the different options that are available to you on here. So with that said, we're going to conclude by moving on into creating a platform with some dirt that we can place some of these rocks on. So with that said, stick around and stay tuned.